Hello, hello. Heather Jean here with another episode of Confidence with Coffee. I am with water today with a little bit of peach juice in it to just kind of uh, make me enjoy that water a little bit more. I'm really struggling to get enough water in through the day, so adding a little bit of flavors through the day is helpful for me. I and this in this segment, I'm talking about our latest podcast or vodcast episode. So, if you're into your audio podcasts, check out Confidence Through Cabaret, anywhere you get your podcast. If you are into the video version, then do check out the Confidence Through Cabaret YouTube channel under the vodcast playlist, and you'll be able to see myself and my guests talking all about our confidence segment. So, the Confidence Through Cabaret podcast is all things confidence, whether that's in your personal life, your work life, or your stage life. And my guest this week is Ashley Carpentier, and we are talking all about loving ourselves and loving our body and feeling good in ourselves. And we talk quite a lot on this episode about the physical, mental, and emotional side of, of feeling good and of having that confidence and self-love. And of course, if we're doing things that don't feel great in our body, that don't light us up, then it can lead to us feeling a little bit like we've quit or we failed or we should be able to do something. And it is so important that we find things to do and movement in our body that feels good for us. It's why all of my programs include not only a training session once a week, but also an opportunity to move in our body without this mind telling us, oh, I should be moving my hips now, or I should be moving my arms now, but just allowing that joy and that feeling. So, when we had the conversation, Ashley and I were talking about the importance of setting boundaries, the importance of being clear on ideal standards that are right for us, not what the outside world says, not what we're supposed to think, not the standards that are external to us, but our standards and our boundaries so that we are genuinely feeling good. And I have a clip for you from this podcast episode. Let's just have a look at it and then we'll talk about it.
Not bringing yourself down and punishing yourself for not having the highest standard. And maybe that means lowering your standards. Maybe your standards are too high. And so, kind of taking a look at like where your standards are, do you need to lower them for yourself to better accept yourself? You know? And I think some of those standards come from society. Some of them come from what we think we need to do or what we think society says. And so, really taking a look at those.
I love that. Really understanding what our standards are. And, lowering our standards doesn't mean failure. Lowering our standards means really thinking about what it is that serves you and your confidence and building your confidence. And, I talk a lot about boundaries and about, making time for your own self-care. Huge amounts when we talk about confidence through cabaret, so that we do feel good, so that we do feel like we can be expansive and unapologetic. But those standards, there's a difference between the standard and my standards. And it is a very fast way to extinguish our light and our joy when we're competing against others, or we're comparing ourselves to others, or we're thinking, well, how come they can do that? And when we do that, we're not really leaning into our full potential and what feels good for us. And feeling good without feeling that we have guilt around the self-care that we take time for, or feeling kind of embarrassed, or feeling like we're shrinking. It is so important that we feel expansive, and so much of that is conditioning. So much of that is what we grew up with, what our parents and carers grew up with, what our friends grew up with, what their standards are. And here's the deal: when you are thinking about your own limits, very often you're comparing yourself to the standards that you were programmed to have, or standards that others have had that they were programmed to have. And the difficulty is, if you have self limiting beliefs and they come from others, then you are limited by others' self limiting beliefs. And the first time I realized that, my head felt like it was exploding. It was like, wow, not only do I have my own self limiting beliefs of what I believe, but I'm limited by other people's beliefs because that is their standards. And so, having that awareness of our thoughts, having that awareness of what we talk to ourselves about, and really kind of, there were lots of tools that we can use. We can use journaling, we can use meditation, we can use mindfulness. All of those are wonderful, but it is just about that awareness of our thoughts and our beliefs and our standards. And when we learn to recognize them and then just notice them, then we can let them go. Now, sometimes it's helpful to know where the source of it is. Sometimes there's a piece of work around forgiveness and around, that the person or people who instilled that programming, were doing their best. They were limited by their own programming and so on. And I think, it's now a point where we need to be considering what our standards are instead of what we perceive the standards are, because it's all just our perception. And so, when we think about moving in our body, when we think about, feeling good in our body, that might be, as Ashley says, going for a walk, that might be lifting weights or going to a gym or doing some sort of physical, fitness kind of activity. It might be just in putting on music and moving and allowing that and switching off that internal dialogue, that voice for a little while. And I think, it's really easy to get sucked into the social media stuff. It's really easy to get stuck into the narrative that other people are putting up, and then comparing ourselves to, how do I compare to what that social media is telling me, or what that, those comments from others are telling me, or, but really kind of taking that time for yourself to consider, what are your standards? Where did they come from? And when you can do that, then you can set the right standards for yourself. You can set the right boundaries for yourself. You can set up the right routines, and you can learn the right tools that are ideal for you and no one else. So, self love starts with yourself. It doesn't start with what other people are telling you should be doing. And it doesn't start with other people's routines or other people's habits. It starts with what suits you and what feels good for you. And in order to get to understanding what that is, there's a certain amount of allowing and vulnerability that needs to happen in order for us to really kind of expand into our space, in order for us to expand and feel good where we are in this moment. Now, those standards might change. And, Ashley's talking about, you might need to lower your standards, and that might be true. But it might be that you need to take that back a step and then build up from there. Now, I do a lot of work with imposter syndrome. And, there are a lot of us that are the natural genius, where we expect to be able to pick up something like that. And if we don't pick it up right away, then we don't want to do it. There are a lot of us that are perfectionists, that have those tendencies. We talk about that in this episode as well, where we feel like things have to be perfect. And there are these external standards that really don't exist. And so there's very often, this is a huge part of my work, especially in corporate work, around, is it your standard or the standard? Because if you're trying to meet this imaginary standard, then you need to be questioning it. And if you're trying to meet your standards, then make sure that they are at the right space, because perfectionism is something that a lot of us really struggle with. That need to be perfect and or appear perfect. And it's just a trap when we get sucked into that. Just looking over my notes, there is so much in this episode where we're talking about really kind of finding what it is that we love and being able to embrace that. Now, that mind body cycle, we started this episode talking about our mindset and getting our body moving so that we feel good in it. For a lot of others, it works the other way. It works from that, moving our body first, and that ignites that flow and that energy that causes us to be able to have the right mindset or adjust our mindset as we need to. I would love it if you go check out the episode. It's on the Vodcast playlist right here on the YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe while you're here, and or go and check out the podcast audio version, and you'll be able to see the full conversation all about self-love and finding that self-acceptance. I will see you next time on Confidence with Coffee, and that comes out every time we have a new podcast and vodcast episode. Thank you so much for being here. We are Confidence Through Cabaret on all of the socials, except for Twitter. We are at YBYWYS. And on Clubhouse, I'm at Heather YBYWYS. And those 6 beautiful letters stand for It Is Your Body. And it is your world. And it is your stage. Take up space and own it and enjoy it and love it and feel good in it, because you deserve it. It's the way that we get that momentum for confidence. And that's what confidence is getting that momentum so that we ride the waves of the highs and lows. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much. Bye.